Awesome. We're live. Perfect. All righty. So for everyone joining us now, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to be talking through Social Media 101 for athletic departments. This is hosted in partnership with our partners at the KSHSAA. We're just going to, give it a minute here to let everybody join in before we do get started. I'm Jack. I'm Gipper's CMO. I'm going to be your host today. Just 1 minute here before we get started, just to let everybody join in. Alrighty. For everyone that's joining now, just so you know, there is actually a Q&A feature at the bottom of the Zoom window. We're going to go through a bunch of different things on the webinar today. And if you have questions, please feel free to shoot us a question in the Q&A section there. We can either answer it if it's timely during the webinar, or we'll also have a Q&A section towards the end where we can get everything answered there. Just going to give it 15 seconds or so more before we do get started, just to make sure everybody can join in. Alrighty, awesome. So we're going to get started here. As I said before, we're going to be talking about Social Media 101 for athletic departments today. This is hosted in partnership with the KSHSAA. I'm joined by two great guests today that I'm going to let introduce themselves in a moment. But I'm your host, Jack. I'm Gipper's Chief Marketing Officer. As I mentioned before, we have a Q&A section at the bottom here. So if you have any questions as we're going through today, please feel free to ask them there. We'll get them answered either during the presentation or towards the end. But we're super excited to have you on board with us, spend some time talking about social media for athletic departments. I'm going to go ahead and let our main panelists introduce themselves right now. That's Caleb Stoppel. Caleb, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks for attending this morning. Gipper, thanks for the opportunity to work with KSHSAA on allowing this webinar. I'm Caleb Stoppel. I'm Assistant Principal and Athletic Director at Olathe East High School, and I'm really excited to be here with you this morning virtually.
Awesome. Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Matthew Glick. I am the founder and CEO of Gipper. And for those of you who are in attendance today and may not be familiar with Gipper, our platform helps athletic departments create professional branded content for social media, but in seconds on any device and without needing any sort of design experience whatsoever. We're used by over 1,000 athletic directors, principals, other athletic administrators, coaches in nearly 50 states, both in K-12, but also at the collegiate level across all divisions. Thank you so much again for being here. Super excited, and thank you to Caleb, especially for taking the time out of his busy day to be a part of this.
Thank you both. Thank you both. So we're just going to run through the agenda here real quick before we get into it. We're going to talk through, first of all, asking a question to Caleb, posing it to Caleb, which is, why is social media critical for high school athletic departments? Really just to get the discussion going, open-ended question for Caleb to answer. Then we're going to go through some steps to actually building a social media strategy using some examples from Olathe East. That's going to start with setting goals for your social media approach, then going through choosing channels. We're going to break down all the individual channels that you have at your disposal and actually setting up official accounts as well. Then going through what many of you might not know yet, which are content pillars. We're going to define that and talk about how they might be really helpful for you, and even how you can even use those pillars to drive some revenue for your program. Then 3 here, we're going to talk through some really helpful tips to make this feasible for you on a day-to-day basis. We know that time is definitely a premium, so you're going to want to make sure that you're doing this in an effective way. And 4, as you can see there, are some actionable next steps. We know that while you're attending webinars on a monthly basis, probably several in a year, you've got a lot of great info that you're going to pull from this. You want to make sure that you're also going to have some actionable plans you're going to be able to put to use at your school, at your program, to make sure that you can actually act on this headed out of the webinar today. So we'll lay out 4 actionable next steps there. And then beyond that, a Q&A section at the end. As I mentioned, we have a little Q&A feature in the bottom of the Zoom window. So if you have any questions at all as we're going through, please feel free to, push in a question there. We can either, answer it directly in the webinar if it is timely, or we'll answer it towards the end in that Q&A section. That's the agenda here. We're going to start off by just posing a question to Caleb right now, which is, why is social media critical for athletic departments? Caleb?
Well, I think the short answer is, and then I'll give a little bit bigger one, but the short answer is, we have got to meet our stakeholders where they are online. And nowadays, I don't think that's websites, although we have really great websites out there in schools. I think it's still important that they put stock into websites. It's not about online newsletters or emails. It's about social media. That's where we meet our stakeholders online. It's social media. The bigger perspective here is I think we'd all agree, everyone on this call right now, that it's all about the kids in the end. It's all about the student athletes. And we would all agree that student athletes work hard. No matter what level they are, what ability level they are, they work hard, they're committed, they're loyal, they're dedicated. And as athletic administrators, one of our responsibilities, and this is the fun part of our job, is we get to recognize that. We get to celebrate it. We get to say, great job, and one way that we can do that in 2021, probably the best way, is again meeting those people, especially our kids, where they are online, which is social media, and giving those celebrations, those recognitions on social media. So that's why the interaction and the engagement to social media as ADs is just so important right now.
And I think one thing, and that's fantastic information, Caleb, but one thing I want to add, and it's something that we've learned just from, working with so many schools across the country, speaking with different members within athletic departments, is the sort of the idea around telling your story. The challenge in 2021 is that, the local newspaper, sort of the local media company is not so prevalent, unfortunately. And that means you kind of have two outcomes when it comes to your school's story. Either you're going to tell it, or if you're going to not tell it on social media, you're going to make a decision to not be active on these platforms. There's going to be stories out there that other people are kind of dictating. The narrative is is in control of the parents, the students, the community members who are on these platforms. Because as you said at the beginning, right, these are the platforms where your stakeholders live. So just because you're not on Twitter or you're not on Instagram doesn't mean people aren't out there talking about your school. So that's one of the things that could happen. Other people could be dictating the sort of narrative that's coming out of your program, or no one will be talking about it. And that's sort of like the difficult reality because of this sort of lack of attention. There's, not this media here that's sourcing all these stories from your program. You have to become your own publisher. There's so many amazing things coming out of every school. You talked about all the hard work the student athletes are putting in. They want to see that recognition. The parents want to see that recognition. And so if you're not out there promoting it, it's very unlikely in a lot of ways that those stories are going to, be out there and be heard. And so it's really, really important as someone within an athletic department to try and promote these through these different channels. And social media is a really effective way to do that because you can put it out on one platform and meet a really wide audience. And so again, that's what we kind of really want to hone in on, is that, if you're not going to tell the story, if you're going to make the decision to not be on these platforms, there are going to be some consequences. And it's either going to be that someone else is talking about it, which can be difficult. We see how unfortunately, one tiny kind of sort of negative bit of information can kind of blow up and become the main story. Or on the flip side, no one's going to be talking about all the great things, all the amazing things that are happening within your program.
Hey, Matthew, if I may too, I think it's important for everyone to remember with this concept, although how crucial it is to be able to tell that story, it can look a lot of different ways. Telling a story doesn't mean all of a sudden now all these hours are committed and I have to be able to have this similar story that you would see in a newspaper or online or something like that. It can be as small and simple as congratulations, or hey, we have a game on this day, or this is our new coach we hired. Simple is just as good as that really involved, in-depth story. And so I want everybody to hear, when you tell your story, anything you do is not going to be the wrong thing. Okay, it's going to be right.
Yeah, that's a great point. When I say story, some people may think of like a long, newspaper article. Definitely not to add that to the list of to-dos for ADs or anyone working within an athletic department. You don't have to be an award-winning journalist, but exactly just putting out, your score updates, game day information, highlighting, maybe someone wins a community service award or an award in the classroom, an athletic award. Just putting that information out there and response, because people actually now know about what's happening. It's hard sometimes from the outside looking in to figure out all the things that are happening within a program. So awesome. I'm going to move on here now into I've lost my step here. Sorry, into the setting goals section of the social media strategy. So as Jack mentioned, we want to start off with that high level question of why is social media important, but then we want to give you the tools to create and execute on an effective social strategy. So the first thing that we recommend doing in that is setting goals for your program. So this is really, really important because if you don't have an understanding of what you're looking to accomplish, it's going to be very hard to be successful. So we really, really recommend that whether you have existing social media or you're looking to implement it within your program, that you do ask yourself this question and try to figure out, what is it that you're actually looking to get out of being on these platforms. And this is going to be different depending on the context of your program, but we've listed some examples here, and then we'll have Caleb kind of talk a little bit about his situation at Olathe East. But one example could be, keeping parents more informed or improving communication with student athletes, connecting with alums to help foster community and increase giving, or just developing an audience to help drive revenue in new channels. This is something that we're seeing more and more high school athletic departments do that's becoming really powerful. So these are, 4 different examples. They may not be, what you're looking to accomplish, or maybe there's a mix of things here. But the point is to go through this exercise so you do have a clear, high-level understanding of what are your goals when using social media. So Caleb, I just want to hand it over to you. Anything that you want to kind of talk about in terms of your goals at Olathe East?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. I've kind of done this approach a little bit backwards. I've used social media as an administrator and then as an athletic director over the past several years. And then it's not been until just recently this past year where I've actually started reflecting on my goals as I've, had some great collegial conversations with other administrators across the region and nation and worked with Gipper individuals. I backtracked on that to say that what I initially started using social media for is still my goals after all. I want to celebrate kids. I love celebrating kids. I love promoting positivity. I love infusing that into the culture of the school body, but also into that athletic program. And then I love being able to just communicate as effectively and as efficiently as possible. And there's a lot of different communication tools and channels, but as that pertains to social media, that has been my goal. So again, kind of moving backwards, going from just what kind of happened to now saying, yeah, my 2 goals are definitely how I celebrate kids and how I communicate. And we'll talk a little bit more about kind of more in depth how those pillars can actually be broken down a little bit more into what you might see I more typically focus on when it comes to how I celebrate and how I communicate with those stakeholders. But definitely these would be my 2 goals and really kind of those pillars that are starting to form.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you'll notice they're not overly complex. When you're asking that question, right, they can be extremely simple like this, right, and fairly obvious. But it's important just to have an understanding of what they are so that you can then build your strategy around it and ensure that you're being successful. So thank you, Caleb, for sharing that background on your program. So once you have goals set, the next thing that we recommend doing ideally is choosing channels that best align with those goals. And in order to do that, you have to have a good understanding of the different social media platforms. There's a lot now. You have to have a good understanding of how they function and the sort of demographics that each platform has. So what we're going to do right now, for those who may not be super familiar, is we're going to go through the major platforms, starting with Twitter, and break down the demographics and how they function so that you have the information to make the best decision for your program in terms of the channel or channels that you want to be active on. So with Twitter, I'm sure everyone is familiar, over 300 million active users. What's interesting about Twitter is the higher volume of sharing that it caters to. So that's why you'll see lots of athletic departments on these platforms sharing live updates, live scoring, game day, schedule changes, all this different sort of real-time information. The platform itself caters to that sort of content being shared. And that's probably part of the reason why Twitter is the #1 platform for high school athletic departments. So if you're looking for, the best platform to connect with other schools, to get information out around your program, Twitter may likely be, that place. It's also the center of the media industry. I talked earlier about how, local media is playing less of a role, but they still do have a role, and Twitter can be a great place to connect with them to help amplify your story. We talked about being your own publisher. You can get your story out there. You can then tag local media and feed them content, and then they can retweet. Maybe they will write an actual article about it. So it's a great way to amplify the message. And we've seen this happen at an actual national scale, where you get, major publishers picking up stories that came about because an athletic department put them out on social media. So it's a really, really powerful way of potentially amplifying your message from, hundreds of people to thousands or tens of thousands, or maybe even hundreds of thousands. Then moving on, Instagram, another very, very popular platform. In terms of the demographics, it caters to the broadest audience. So it's used by 75% of 18 to 24-year-olds, 50% of 25 to 49-year-olds. You'll find a lot of your students, most of your students are on Instagram. The platform is very heavy on visuals, and sharing within the feed, you'll see lots of photos, really high quality images. And then through Instagram stories, you'll see more frequent real-time content, sort of like the same content that you often see on Twitter, where you can post live score updates and things like that, because these stories update, within 24 hours. So that's a little bit of background on Instagram. Just generally at a high level, it's likely the best bet to reach the most people with one platform, although it's contextual to your school, of course. So you want to kind of assess what your school, what your students, what your stakeholders are using. But generally, best platform to meet the most people. Facebook then, you may have heard that Facebook is dead. That's not true whatsoever. One of the most popular platforms around. It is generally best for reaching parents, older family members, older alums. 70% of 30 to 65-year-olds are on this platform. Your current students, younger alums, may not be on the platform or may be way less active on it. So for example, checking Instagram far more than they are checking Facebook. It's also home to many booster clubs and other active groups. And what's really interesting is Facebook has some tools within it that allow you to actually fundraise from within the platform. So that could be something that's beneficial for you if you're able to build an audience on Facebook through your Facebook page. There can be a nice way to fundraise through that to help generate more revenue for your program. And then lastly, we're going to touch on Snapchat and TikTok. There are more social media platforms, but we're sticking with these. Snapchat and TikTok, we've grouped together. Obviously, TikTok being the more recently released app, although in the past year, it's just become so mainstream. Current students extremely active on these platforms. You'll see 73% of 18 to 24-year-olds on Snapchat. Of TikTok's over 800 million users, 41% are in the 16 to 24-year-old age bracket. Both of these platforms cater to more spontaneous sharing of content. The content is all in a vertical format, and it incorporates a lot of music, filters, humor. There's lots of dancing you'll see in TikTok videos. It definitely caters towards the demographic that is most active on it. Now, it's not saying you can't put different types of content on TikTok. Of course you can, but that's sort of the majority of the content. And again, really, really popular within that younger age demographic. And then I want to just put them up here all together so you can kind of see how they function together. So you see in the top left, we have Twitter, great for live tweeting, score updates, real-time sharing of content. Also a great place to connect with media to amplify your message. In the top right, Instagram, that broad audience, likely the best place to connect with the most people on one platform across different age groups. And then in the bottom left, Snapchat, TikTok, fantastic, again, as we just were saying, with the younger generation, current students, younger alums, and then Facebook, fantastic for the older demographic, the older age groups, parents, grandparents, older alums. So hopefully, again, this is helpful in just a basic understanding of these platforms. I'm going to hand it over to Caleb to kind of talk about his situation and how he's thought about the different options. But again, I do want to mention that while these are generalizations, you do want to think specifically about what's best for your program. So Caleb, I'll let you kind of take it from there.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So, I've been on Twitter, I think, for a long time once I got into teaching and coaching many years ago. And I just found it a good means to supplement what I was already putting out on, those parent emails and, those remind, messages to the kids, and this was something where I started using for, some announcements of a game day win or something like that. And it kind of grew into, something I started using as a PLN, that professional learning network, as an athletic administrator, but then also still something I was promoting my student athletes and athletic programs. I'll tell you that I still like the engagement, whether people actually like or retweet. I don't consider that the end all be all engagement. Sometimes I will be curious and I'll check, you can check the statistics of any given tweet that you compose, and you can see the reach of it. You can see how many interactions. That's sometimes how I gauge and remember that people, are actually scrolling through this. Every once in a while, as I'm sure you all do, we'll get some comments from community members or parents like, oh, I couldn't make the game last night. Thank you so much for putting those score updates out. Kids, I don't know how much they live on Twitter or not, but oddly enough, I think a lot of those kids have kept around their Twitter accounts, even though they're on Snap and they're on Instagram and such, because when you put something out about them, that senior profile or that game-winning shot or game-winning goal, they will hear about it. They will know about it. They may not still retweet it. Maybe it's not cool to interact with the AD on Twitter, but they will know about it, and that means something to me, because if it makes it back to the kid, that's why I do that. I want to promote the kids. I'll be honest. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say one thing there, like you were talking about the students on Twitter. The one great thing is if you're building an audience on one of these platforms or more, and you're doing a great job, you're consistently putting out content. We're going to be talking about that a little bit later on, but you will drive people towards the platform. So yes, meet people where they are, but if you're doing an excellent job, you're putting out content around your students, they're seeing it, they're going to go to those platforms now, and you're going to build an audience there that you have, now you have all of your students, your parents, your staff and faculty looking and following your Twitter account, for example. So that's the best place for you to now put out your information. So you can actually build the audience on top of meeting people where they are.
Yeah, for sure. I'll quickly add, I'm always looking for growth opportunities for myself, and I understand, I believe the statistics, and I have an Instagram account, but I fail to know as much as I should about Instagram, and so that is on my immediate radar to see how I can now go a step further and engage those stakeholders, bring them to our athletic programs, let them know our successes and celebrations. But I don't feel as stressed out as I think I would have back in the day. And so I want to offer that to the people listening is don't be stressed out about this. If you are biting off the biggest piece you can, and you're like, hey, my goal is to just make a Twitter account and maybe start putting out some score updates, and I don't even know about these other things, then that's great. I don't, again, kind of as I talked about before, any movement you do towards wanting to engage on social media is a great one. And I think whether it's one social media platform or multiple, it's okay to go at your own pace. I'm not even fully ready to jump on board with Instagram, and I may very well not for a given time. And that's okay too. You have to embrace what you're going to be ready for.
I like that is 100% fantastic information, because you're so right. I think when people often think about social media, they see these different options in front of them today. They may be sort of getting stressed out. It's like, I don't know anything about TikTok. How am I going to do a good job? And the point is, again, it's contextual. It's based on your situation. Yes, think about your goals. Think about the sorts of demographics and who you're trying to target, but also think about what you can manage. What's your bandwidth? What are you comfortable with? And go from there, and baby steps first. It's better to do an amazing job on one platform than have 4 different accounts on different platforms where you're not doing a very good job. So that's fantastic advice, Caleb. Anything else that you want to add here before we move on?
Nope.
Perfect. So now we're going to transition into actually having official accounts. So this is something that we really highly recommend. Once you understand the channel or the channels that you want to use, you want to go ahead and create an official account for your athletic program. Now we're going to have Caleb kind of just talk about this sort of, in a little bit, this sort of juxtaposition between a personal account and a program account, because I'm sure many of you have personal social media accounts where you put out information around your athletic program. And some of you may also have athletic department specific accounts where information goes out. So in a little bit, we'll speak about that. But the first thing that I want to talk about is actually the setup for these program-wide accounts. So when you're thinking about creating these, or if you have one already, you want to think about the actual handle names on these different platforms. This is really, really important, and mainly for 2 reasons. One is brand and the sort of professionalism that a proper name has. You'll see school name in high or school name in athletics. that elicits this sort of professionalism, this official status, and it has great brand value. It's not, someone's name with some letters at the end, or sort of your mascot and some random combination of characters. It's your school name and athletics, something that really stands out and is clearly professional and official. So that's the one important part. But the second important part, and maybe the most important, is searchability. If you're talking about using these platforms because you want to engage with your students, your parents, alums, community members, you want to make it really easy for them to find your account. So if you have something that's when they type in your school name and athletic department or athletics and it doesn't come up, that's going to be a problem because you're missing out. If you're making it difficult for people to find your account, it's going to be very, very hard to build an audience, or it's going to take much longer. So this is a really small thing you can do that can go a really long way. So it's highly, highly recommended that you do create the single program-wide account and you give the handles correct naming. Caleb, any questions about this or any things you want to add here?
No, I definitely want to talk about this a little bit more as it pertains to my own kind of journey with a personal account versus not. But I can totally reiterate what you're saying, and I'm constantly working with my coaches, to not micromanage this, because I love that they want to have, yes, we're going to kind of roll into this. I don't want to micromanage them ever on how they want to interact with their stakeholders. But I do think, valuing professionalism, but also valuing simplicity is very important, because again, like what Matthew said, we don't want to find ourselves difficult to find online. We want to be able to type Olathe East and then boom, the first hit that comes up is our athletic account and then our high school account. That's what we want to make it simple for our stakeholders.
Exactly. And this is the standard, right? Having those official names for handles, it's the standard for college athletic departments, and especially when it comes to team accounts. And it's the same reasons: professionalism. If you have coaches creating sub accounts, you want to make sure the names are professional and they are aligned with the school. So when people can come to it, it makes sense. It looks like you have the main athletic department account, and then you have all the connected team accounts within in sort of an umbrella fashion. And so if you can name them consistently across the board, that's going to be really great from a brand and professionalism standpoint, and also the searchability standpoint we were just talking about. It may not be possible because names may be taken, but try to get as close to it as you can. Okay, so I want to now hand it over to Caleb to talk kind of in depth with a little bit of a case study here on the personal versus program concept. So Caleb, I'll let you sort of take it away here and talk about what you've been thinking here.
Yeah. Thank you. So this is really interesting because it's literally a step into my mind right now of something I'm brainstorming with, trying to figure out my own plan, thinking about what I'm trying to plan to roll out in the future. When I first got on Twitter, as an educator and a coach, again, my purpose was to have this be professional, have this be how I can celebrate. I don't even know what it means to have a quote personal Twitter account. I have a personal Facebook account that really all I do is just post pictures of my kids, like that typical kind of parent does. Otherwise, I don't really even use personal Facebook too much. So when I have my personal Twitter, that's really a personal professional Twitter, because I am fully represented as an assistant principal and athletic director, and that's all the content that I share. I never share anything personal otherwise. Where this has become interesting is because of my passions, excitement, my lifelong learning journey, I find myself more and more involved in different niches, whether it's different professional learning networks, whether it's administrator chats and groups, whether it's starting to interact with athletic administrators across the nation on Twitter. I feel like I'm now promoting a little bit of a confusing brand, because although my purpose and my goal has been to promote Olathe East athletics, Olathe East student athletes, I promote athletic administration, I promote leadership, I promote even things in the community, great things happening in Olathe, Kansas. I want to be a proponent and a champion of that. But as the stakeholder that is interacting with my social media, who maybe just wants to know what the game update of their freshman son's baseball game was last night, they may not care about all the KSHSAA stuff I'm sharing or NIAAA stuff I'm sharing, or maybe there was some breaking news in the area that has an impact on education-based athletics, And so I now find myself in a little bit of a transition to understanding the need to have a program, an organization-based Twitter representation as opposed to personal. I can still be myself as an athletic administrator and still share everything I've been sharing, but I think it's going to be important now that I actually allow for more efficiency and simplicity to my stakeholders by having a one-stop shop for only Olathe East athletics. And that's the need for the organizational account. So that's why we have this kind of transition. The program account is coming, but I can still be my own brand. But right now I have brand confusion, which is something I would have never foreseen,
Absolutely. I think it's a challenge that a lot of other athletic directors who are active on social media personally, even though it's, putting out their professional, work, kind of run into. But another, I think, thing to think about with these channels is ownership. On the right, we have the athletic department account, which is technically owned by the program, owned by the athletic department, right? It may be managed by you, Caleb, or someone else within your department, but it's essentially owned by the school, by the athletic department. The personal account, you're sharing your information, you manage it, and you own it yourself. And you've done a lot of hard work to build up that sort of brand and to grow your social media presence, probably without even thinking about it, just by your passion for Olathe East and your passion for athletic administration, and all the professional development work you've done. But as other people are doing this, and it's a challenge that we've seen, sometimes people working within an athletic department, whether it's an AD, an assistant AD, a coach, they transition, they leave, and they take the account with them because it's their account. For the school, for the athletic department, that's a big issue, because you may have built up a huge audience where your parents, community members, students all expect the school and athletic information to be coming out of, and then sort of overnight it can disappear. And so by creating the program right account for the school, owned by the school in a sense, you're sort of setting up that protection that they'll always have that, and they don't have to worry about losing access to the account because someone leaves and things like that. So I think that's a really important thing. And again, this is the standard. You'll see it at the collegiate level. Of course, it's a different situation, but I think it really speaks to the importance. Athletic directors will be active on social media, but they'll be using, a separate account than the department-wide account. So we do highly recommend absolutely have your personal account and share all the information around your program, but do try to have that program-wide account. And I know that's something, Caleb is working on. Any other thoughts here on this specific situation, Caleb?
No, but it's just something that, is something that 6 months ago, I would have not at all been looking at this, not been comfortable with it. In fact, I was embracing, as the athletic administrator, it's my duty, to share this information, these celebrations, but continued reflection and just looking what best practices out there, whether it's at the high school level, at the collegiate level, at the organizational level. This is kind of become the best practice, and I'm embracing that, and I'm excited for it.
Absolutely. So in saying that, I'm going to click over now and show you a sort of slide around what is best practice, what is the standard when it comes to these official program-wide accounts. So this is a screenshot from Twitter, and this is Twitter specific, but it does sort of relate to other channels as well. But you'll notice there is the branded profile icon. So that's the profile picture for the account. It is branded. It has the logo. It's a clear representation of the school and of the program. And then you'll see also the branded header. So it's not empty. There's not no photo there, or there's not just a kind of blurry photo. There's a very pleasing, visual, compelling piece of content that represents your school's branding. And then in the bio, you'll notice it says the official Twitter account of, or for, X program. And this is really, really important because it speaks to that professionalism, the official status so that when parents or students or media members, community members, whoever it may be, come to this account, they have confidence that this is the right account and this is official information that is being shared. And then also the website linked. So this is highly recommended. It may seem obvious, but a lot of people still don't do this. There are often a lot of schools as well that have the same name, but are from different areas. So you have the same name, but maybe 5 schools in 5 different states. And so if you don't link your website, if you don't have a clear bio, people may mix up the schools. We actually see it may seem a little bit remarkable, but we see this happen all the time. And so putting out your website can be really helpful in making sure people are at the right account, but also allowing them to easily engage with your program at that next step. So if you're having important, documents that you need parents to look at that are on your website, they can easily find them by just going to your Twitter. They see a post about it. They click on the link in your bio and they're there. So it's kind of like the searchability thing, just making it easy for your stakeholders to find what they're looking for. But again, this is the standard. This is best practice. You want to try your best to do this across your different channels. Now, certain platforms like Instagram don't offer a header, for example, so you wouldn't have that. But it's the same thing with the profile icons. You can have consistent profile icons across your different accounts. You can have consistent bios across your accounts, and you can have your website linked across accounts. And that simple setup will go a really, really long way from a brand standpoint. And again, making it easy for your stakeholders to understand that, yes, this is the official account where the correct information is being shared. And this is how I can find your website and so on. Anything you want to add here, Caleb?
Nope, I think I'm good.
Okay. All right. So then we're going to do another related case study around another, sort of challenge that Caleb has run into around these sub accounts, team versus booster accounts. So Caleb, I'll hand it over to you here.
Yeah. So this is interesting. And if anybody listening has any insight, please feel free to reach out to me soon, because I would love any input. And again, not trying to micromanage social media, but I feel like that as we are responsible for our athletic programs and our coaches, we need to have a plan. Whether it's a legitimate social media plan, we need to have an organization, something behind this, because right now to Olathe East, we have a couple things going on. The example you see in front of you is our football account that's managed by coaches. And then on the right side is our booster account, which is managed by parents. And this is one example of how I would see it needing to be done, a school account versus a non-school account, but still for the same purpose. But we have some accounts that will read just like a program account. Okay, so it'll read as the OE men's soccer, Twitter, for example. And that's the standalone account. So there's only one soccer account. So you're like, well, I assume this is the team account, but it doesn't say boosters anywhere in here. But the reality of it is that account is run by parents. A lot of its communication and purpose is booster club led, as opposed to the type of stuff that maybe a coach is putting out. Hey, reminder, practice has been moved, or as a reminder, bring your cleats, blah, blah, blah. But so it causes confusion. And in my mind, I see a distinct separation between a booster account on social media and a team account. And I get nervous, and we talk a lot about some of our legal responsibilities and our legal duties as athletic administrators. I get nervous sometimes at the liability, whether legal or not, that we have when we put non-school personnel in charge of a communication channel or something that represents a school program that's not run by school staff. We believe the best in our people, including our parents. Booster Club parents are always so giving and just help the program all the way, but we can't guarantee crazy things can't happen. And it's not worth the risk if you can prevent it. And again, may seem such like a simple thing and such a fine detail of, well, what's the matter whether it's a Booster Club or not account. I think it matters. And so that's something on my list that I'm going to work with my coaches on and my boosters for this year upcoming to separate and to have some more of that professionalism that we were talking about demonstrated through our accounts, so that there's no question whether a parent runs this or a coach runs it, whether it's a team account or a booster account.
And that's why this can be so powerful. It's really, really simple to do, but if you make sure that all of your program run accounts, whether team accounts or the athletic department run account, have these branded assets, have the same bio. So the official Twitter account for Olathe East High School football, the official Twitter account for Olathe East High School boys soccer, girls soccer, and so on and so on. Then when other people make the accounts, there's going to be a clear demarcation, and you're going to sort of manage that risk appropriately. So I think it's spot on and really, really important information for ADs around the country, because again, you never know what could happen. Of course, you don't want something to go wrong, but the reality is that it could, and you want to protect yourself and your program and your school. Anything else here, Caleb, before we move on?
Nope, I'm good.
Awesome. All right. So the next thing that we're going to talk about, now that we've talked about the official accounts, is content pillars. And this is directly related to your content strategy. So the actual content that you're going to be sharing to your different platforms that you're using. Now, as Jack mentioned at the very beginning, most of you are probably not familiar with the term content pillar. That's totally okay. We're going to define it for you now. So a content pillar is a subset of topics or themes which help create the foundation for your overall content strategy. I'll read it one more time just to be clear. So a subset of topics or themes which help create the foundation for your overall content strategy. So an example of a content pillar could be celebrating student athletes. And we recommend that you actually align your pillars with your goals. So if a pillar is celebrating student athletes, you can kind of think of this as a funnel with celebrating student athletes at the top and all these different content types that align with that celebrating student athletes pillar. So that could be, for example, athlete of the weeks, athletic achievements, right? Maybe there's a conference of the year or player of the year award for a conference or for a league. Maybe there's academic achievements, achievements in the community. Anything that you can share or highlight it that's going to celebrate your student athletes would fit within that content pillar. So I want to now hand it over to Caleb just to talk a little bit more about the pillars. You'll notice they're aligned with the goals, and then we'll get into some specifics about how Caleb has created content types based on these pillars. So Caleb, I kind of let you take it away here.
Yeah, sure. And, I might be where you're at right now. When I first kind of started hearing a little bit more and kind of immersing myself in this pillar concept, I really had to chew on that for a while. And so, but I think at most simplest form, just like what Matthew just said, your goals and pillars are very, I would almost say synonymous, okay? In that it's all the same purpose. What is, and maybe that's a good word, what is your purpose, okay, for wanting to use social media? And if you can continue to go back to that why, okay, and it's like, well, man, I'm just wanting to do celebration and I wanted to communicate. Or, you could throw these out and maybe someone is all about generating revenue and all about, trying to connect with alumni because that's that priority need. Then that's your pillar. And it's your goal, and it's all these things together. And I think the idea is that we continued, and I like Matt's kind of visual, we funnel down from the top. Okay, so we start big with these goals and pillars. And what happens at the end of this, and we're about to talk about this in the next few slides, is we start talking about the specific examples. We start talking about, well, what are we talking about with pillars and everything like that? Well, we're talking about ways to communicate effectively. So we're talking about game day announcements. That's a great example. And if that's, again, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're not trying to even micromanage athletic administrators. You're not going to have a wrong answer here. What do you think communicating effectively is? And if you're like, I like giving good luck tweets to teams, well, those are game day tweets. Go for it. If you like communicating out in addition to what coaches send when you have a rain out, then boom, parents know to check the AD's Twitter as well as check the baseball coach's Twitter because it's raining outside and I need to see if the game's still on. Somebody can't make it to the game, but they know they can either check the program's Twitter or they know they can't check the basketball Twitter because nobody tweets while the coach is coaching, but they know to check the AD's Twitter and they're going to put quarter updates on there. So however that funnels down from your goals to your pillar to how you actually will accomplish that goal is the purpose of the structure of the pillar.
Exactly. And as Kayla mentioned, like it doesn't have to be super difficult. You have the basic goals, the basic content pillars that are relatively high level. And then you just think about what aligns with those pillars. And Kayla did a great job walking through all the different examples. And there's more, but all the different examples that he uses for communicating effectively with stakeholders in terms of that one pillar. But Caleb, I'll let you continue on here as we talk about, your second pillar here, celebrations.
Yeah. Well, and so as we've been talking, my two big things, celebrating and communicating. So celebrating student athletes, it doesn't always have to be, these flashy graphics too, that, we aren't talking a lot about here, because our purpose here is to talk about how we as athletic administrators can accomplish these positive impacts and interactions on social media. But the reality is I'm not a graphic artist, didn't go to any of those classes in school. Okay. I can navigate some technology, but I do not have the time, nor do you, to be doing stuff in Photoshop or all those fancy things that I don't even know anything about. And that's where Gipper comes in. Okay. So I know that's not the purpose of our time together today, but as you're looking through some of these examples, okay, that's not me being smart. I'm not that smart when it comes to designing stuff. In fact, this is kind of dummy proof. You type some stuff in, you throw some graphics in, and then boom, you push it out, and your stakeholders love it, and your kids love it, because they say, wow, that's some professional content. And that's the end game for us, because we're making kids feel confident and good. But as you can see here, it doesn't just have to be these templates and designs and stuff that you're designing up, but just throw out whatever you want to throw out on social media to celebrate a kid. You're at a wrestling tournament, you're at some type of event, take a quick picture or video, type a couple words that says, hey, this kid's working hard, wrestling well today. We don't really know, in fact, this particular tweet here, he won this one, but just as much as I put out tweets about kids winning, I put out tweets when they lose. And I say, gosh, they battled so hard, they wrestled, they played so well, but they fell in the end. You got to celebrate both the good and the learning opportunities, okay? Because there is no negative, and we have to be fair to that. But as you can see, I just tweeted out a video with a statement. The middle one, I utilized a graphic with a website post. Okay, so I'm starting to put that out. So again, this goes back to something I've been saying. You cannot go wrong with putting something out there if it aligns with your goals, celebrating, communicating, whatever it might be. So start small, because that's better than doing nothing at all.
Exactly. And hopefully some of the examples that Caleb have used can be, sort of inspirational for people watching today, because I know sometimes it's hard to come up with ideas, and we've, outlined a bunch more here for you to kind of think about. But thank you, Caleb, for that feedback. I want to just speak a little bit more about why they help. Caleb sort of outlined it for us already, but in terms of content pillars, it helps with content targeting because they're so aligned with your goals. That they're doing the right things. They're going to allow you to accomplish your goals when it comes to social media. But it also helps with ideation. I was just talking about this. Sometimes it's hard to know what you should post. Like as an AD, social media is not your number one responsibility. You have lots of other things going on. It's a part of your job. And so coming up with ideas can sometimes be difficult. And content pillars makes it much easier because it's so focused. You can use that kind of funnel visual. And then lastly, something we haven't really touched on much yet, but we will in a little bit, it's going to allow for potential advertising opportunity. If you have consistent post types going out, like athlete of the weeks or game day announcements, score updates, you can actually monetize these posts. You may have advertising on your websites. Social media is a great advertising opportunity. We have schools, run-of-the-mill schools, not major, brand name programs, who are generating thousands of dollars in revenue a year by placing sponsor logos on these graphics, maybe putting a mention of the business in the caption. Can be a fantastic revenue source for your program. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. And hopefully that makes sense in terms of content pillars. We're now going to move forward to creating branded visual content. So Caleb kind of touched on it before, but in today's day and age with social media, content is king, and being able to capture the attention of stakeholders is really, really important. And branded visual content, as you see here, we pulled some examples from Caleb's social profiles or social accounts, is a really, really great way to do this. It's the standard at the professional level, at the collegiate level, and becoming more of the standard now at the high school level as well. So you see all different examples. You'll notice logo usage, consistent branding, font usage, hashtags, and things of that nature, all to, again, communicate your brand in a professional way. in a way that's going to build recognizability. When you see this blue and this orange, and you're, from the sort of Olathe area, Olathe East, you probably think of Caleb as well and the program and all the student athletes, right? So this is a fantastic way to do this versus something like just a text-based post on Twitter, which, it's great for getting out information. There's times for it, of course, but that's going to offer the lowest form of engagement and no brand opportunity. Plus, there's no ability to really monetize that content. So this is, sort of this becoming the standard now, even for high school athletic departments. And as Caleb mentioned, students love it, parents love it. We hear stories all the time of parents who print these out and will frame them of their students when they see them out on Instagram or Twitter and things like that.
Hey,
so,
man,
yeah.
While we're on this real quick, I just want to throw out that, believe me, like you, we don't have a second to even think about anything before the day's over. Time is precious right now, especially with spring sports. We're so lucky to be having spring sports, but I don't know about you all, but being removed from even being an AD in spring sports, it's a daily kind of battle just to be like, whew, okay, we have so many events today, I'm out of the loop. So do not think that I have hours in the day to create these. I don't have extra people helping me. And that's the beauty of using some type of platform, because, Gipper, even though it's awesome, there are some other ones out there. And I know some folks who utilize VNN websites, there's Box Out Sports out there. I mean, there are things out there to help coaches and ADs work smarter, not harder. And I think the beauty of Gipper, though, and what you're seeing here is once you take a few minutes to draft something up, pick your colors, pick your font, type your stuff in, you begin to reproduce that and change some of the details. If you do look across my whole timeline, a lot of this stays consistent competition to competition. I don't completely reinvent the wheel just because we have another wrestling meet and I want to do it differently. No, I make them a lot of the same, and I just go in and I change the opponents, I change the time. And that's the beauty of using some type of program or template, because it allows us to work smarter, not harder. And I just wanted that to be known as you're seeing all these crazy examples. It really is not that involved as you would think.
Yeah, that's a great point, right? Everyone is extremely busy, time crunch, especially with everything going on, the craziness of this year. This is, designed to allow you to do this really in a matter of seconds from any device. And as Caleb mentioned, you can just plug in the information once, you can save it, and then just reuse it throughout the season. And that's actually best practice. Ideally, you want to look for that sort of consistency in the branding for a team, for a season, for a year. That way you can build sort of recognizability, and also it's going to be much easier for you in terms of workflow. So that's, great points from Caleb. But I do want to just touch on some of the importance of this content. As I mentioned already, allows you to control and grow your brand, so you can build recognizability because your colors, your logos are on the content. It's going to allow you also to more effectively engage your stakeholders. We talk about stopping the scroll. When they scroll through and they see that blue and that orange, that Olathe logo and a photo of a student athlete, that's captivating. But it's also going to allow you to better promote your students and your programs. We hear time and time again, when people start doing this on social media, the reaction is almost immediate. We had one individual from a school in Georgia who told us that the next day, practically from putting out this sort of content, a student actually said that he overheard a student saying, whoever is doing the graphics needs a raise. And it was his graphics before and then Gipper graphics after. And he was saying that it was just like this immediate effect. People were just recognizing it because they're seeing something that almost looks like, it looks like a college program. And so your high school student athletes are getting that collegiate experience. They're getting that recognition. They're getting celebrated in a way that's really, really powerful. And then lastly, this opportunity to drive revenue. So I'll touch on that right now. We actually have a sponsor logo feature on Gipper where you can place a sponsor logo on the actual content. This is something that's very prominent in college. More and more programs are starting to do it at the high school level because I think they're starting to understand the value that this content has. You can place this logo on the content, save your design, and then consistently use it, as Caleb was kind of talking about, consistently use those designs throughout the season, throughout the year. So you can just push out lots and lots of content with your sponsor's logo on it, creating great advertising opportunity and advertising value for the sponsor. And in return, you can generate thousands and thousands of dollars potentially for your program. So here's just an example from one of the schools that we work with. This is Owasso High School in Oklahoma, and you'll see that they have various sponsors on their different social media posts. I was just speaking with another AD who has a title sponsor for all of their social media content. So any post has a logo on it. He was generating upwards of $8,000 a year. And that was a program that has followers really in the hundreds, not even in the thousands. So there's really fantastic opportunities, fantastic ways to generate revenue over social media. And you can start small. And the great thing is you'll build on it. And year one, it may be one level, but year three, it could be something way, way more significant. So just an option. Always, if there's ways that you can generate revenue and better support your programs, it can be really helpful. And then lastly, in terms of driving revenue in social, it doesn't have to be the direct advertising on the content. You can just use it to generate revenue in kind of in slightly different ways from just promoting your events. You may see upticks in attendance, so increase in gate revenue if you're charging, if you're selling tickets. We've seen some pretty cool things around like red zone sponsors. So if your football team gets in the red zone, you'll tweet out a message about the sponsor. Wrestling pin sponsors in the same sort of way. And then as we were just talking about, this sort of bread and butter content, these graphics, athlete of the week, final score, game days, and things like that can be great advertising opportunities. Caleb, anything, I know you haven't dived into driving revenue, but anything you want to add here that may be helpful?
No, but I do think, certain school districts and schools even may have different policies and expectations in place. I know in Olathe, there's a little bit more policy that drives what we can and can't do when it comes to advertisement and money received. But I think also that our capacity to drive revenue like this is changing just as the times change, and I don't know, I can't speak fully for this because it wasn't on my radar years ago. But this is a relatively new conversation, I think, in many parts of high school athletics. And I think it deserves a conversation. And I think just as simple as throwing that sponsor on there, it doesn't take away from the content. It doesn't take away from the overall purpose. But if it's something that could continue to allow you to best support your programs, which means, having some of that financial backing, then I think this is a great opportunity. And I hope that one day soon, this can be something that, can be incorporated out of Olathe East.
Awesome. And I apologize there. My Wi-Fi just cut out for a second. So I got booted out of the Zoom and back in. So give me a moment here just to pull up the presentation. But that's exactly the point in terms of driving revenue, just something to consider. Obviously, you want to think about the context of your school as well. But give me one moment here. I'm just pulling up, and we're right towards the end of the presentation here. So give me one moment. So the next thing that we're going to just talk about is tips to help you execute on a daily basis when it comes to your social media channels. So again, working smarter, not harder. Caleb mentioned at the beginning. We know everyone's busy, limited time, limited resources. So this is really important. The first thing we recommend doing is using some sort of saved templates. Caleb talked about this. You may not be using the Adobe suite. If you are, save templates on Photoshop and Illustrator so you can easily plug in information if you are a graphic designer yourself. If you're not, using some sort of platform like Gipper, where you can just set up these in a few minutes and then save and use them throughout the year. Can be really, really helpful in allowing you to do this, because as we all know, if you're at the silence of a game, you're not like going to be spending 20 minutes putting something together to get out a halftime score update. Plus, by the time you do it, the game's over. So it's got to be quick. It's got to be easy. Save templates can be really powerful in allowing you to do that. Also, a content calendar. A content calendar just dictates when, where, and what you will be posting. You can use a platform like Hootsuite for this. You can use just something like free, like Google Sheets, where you just set up, a month, and you literally just write in athlete of the week, Wednesday, 3 p.m., Twitter. And that way you just have some things written down. It can be really basic. Maybe it's just for like 3 post types: a daily schedule, a weekly schedule, and athlete of the week. And that's all marked down, exactly when and where that's going out, and it will allow you to be consistent. And then also scheduling posts. This is super important. Allows you to get ahead of the game. You can schedule out posts using a platform like Hootsuite or Buffer. Gipper, we have scheduling as well, where you can connect your Twitter accounts, your Facebook pages, your Instagram accounts now, and you can actually set the day or time for these to go out, and in one click, have these go out automatically. So again, you may not be able to post in the moment, but you can schedule out things ahead of time and have a really great base of content. And then also a shared folder for media, talking about photos, videos, things like that. You may not have a photographer on campus, but likely there are great photos out there from students, from staff, from parents. If you can find a way to sort of crowdsource that content using a shared folder like Google Drive or Dropbox, whatever it may be, you can then use those throughout the season or throughout the year. So that's something that can be really, really powerful for your program, because great images are really great, or great video is really awesome when it goes out on social media. Anything to add here, Caleb? I know we're running towards the end here, so I just want to be cognizant of everyone's time.
No, except for, again, you can't go wrong. We have enough to worry about and to be responsible for. All of this is just icing on the cake. It is becoming more of a responsibility and not an extra for athletic administrators. We owe it to our stakeholders, but you're not going to go wrong with anything you try. And so if you're on the fence, go for it. Create that Twitter account, start sending out a couple things here and there, and you'll be surprised at how quickly you will get acclimated to it and how quickly you will get positive reinforcement that people love it.
Absolutely. And then lastly, really quick here, again, I just want to move through these quickly to be respectful of everyone's time. The actionable next steps. The first thing we recommend, plan a meeting with stakeholders. You want to get approval and buy-in for whatever you're going to do on social media. If you can get that at the beginning, that's going to set you up for success long-term. The last thing you want is like a month in to hear from somebody within your building that there's some sort of issue around what you're doing on social media. 2, get organized. And this is setting your strategy. It's going through those steps in terms of setting your goals, choosing your channels, creating official accounts, and building out content pillars. Doing that foundational work will ensure that you're successful long-term and allow you to execute the right way when it comes to social media. Highly recommend the consistent social media assets. So like the profile pictures, the headers, the bios, linking your website, just doing that like 5 minutes of setup work that will elevate your content, elevate your profiles really, really significantly right off the bat. And then try to plan posts out, a month ahead of time if you can. Again, can just be the basics like athlete of the weeks, or maybe you can't do athletes of the weeks ahead of time, but daily schedules, weekly schedules, we have that schedule information. That way you have some sort of, you're able to breathe. You're not doing everything in the moment, kind of running through social media. Of course, there's going to be real time moments, but doing things ahead of time, what you can do ahead of time is really powerful. And then lastly, just stay consistent. Consistency is key on these platforms. And execute on the plan. You have this foundational setup for a reason, use it, and that will guide you to success in achieving those goals that we talked about early on in the webinar. So we're right at the hour mark here. So I just want to say thank you so much to everyone. We will stick around, Jack and I, in terms of Q&A. I'm not sure if Caleb can, just based on his time's situation, but Caleb, thank you. Oh, you're good to stay, Caleb?
I can stay. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. But again, Caleb, thank you so much. If there are questions, Jack will work through them. But yeah, thank you, everyone. And one thing I do want to mention, you can learn more about Gipper at gogipper.com/athletics. And we do have a partnership with KSHSAA. So for any of our paid plans, you can actually use that code either with a credit card purchase or just by contacting our team, and you'll get 10% off any of our plans for first-time purchase. So just want to let people know of that option. But yeah, Jack, you can take it away here if there are any questions.
Awesome. That was great, Caleb and Matt. Really appreciate all the info there. Just want to, pose to anyone that's still here, if you have any questions or anything. We only had one question throughout the whole presentation. Someone that was wondering about the recording. For all of you that are still here, the recording will be shared over email later today. So you'll be able to check it out if you missed a portion of this or just want to, rewatch. But is there anything else, any, questions that anyone might have that we can answer before we jump off here today?
And one thing I'll mention as we wait, just to give people the opportunity, if there are any questions, we do also have a free professional development opportunity through Gipper. It's called our social media certification for athletic departments. This is a sort of 101 webinar that gives you sort of an intro. The certification is more expansive and has different videos that you can watch on demand, little quizzes, and a final exam. I know Caleb's gone through it himself. It's totally free. You can do it at your own pace, but it could be a great resource if you're looking to learn more and dive a little bit deeper into what we've talked about today.
You can find that at gogipper.com/learn as well. So if you go to the website listed there, you'll be able to see it on the top tab. But
Yeah, can I mention something real quick too?
Yeah.
I think this would have helped me way back in the day, but probably, at the conception of Gipper, this wasn't a thing yet. So I'm glad they've kind of built this up. There's a free account. There's no reason why anybody listening to this recording or still on the call, if this is kind of piquing your interest, but we're talking money and that's something you don't even want to think about. Go online and sign up for the free account, and it gives you access to like 10 templates you can play with. You can test drive it. You can see how easy, and believe me, this is not a pitch, because I investigated a lot of these platforms, and there's a reason why I use Gipper so much, because it's so easy and the stakeholders love it. So if you have the interest, go online, check it out. It's a free account, play with it. I think you're going to like it.
100%.
Awesome.
Yeah, we do have the sandbox plan that has, I think it's roughly 10 templates that you can use, and just test it out. And if it's something that you'd like, you can contact our team. We'll be able to either walk you through a demo if you have questions, or upgrade you beyond just the sandbox plan. We do have one question here, and Matthew, I'll just pose it directly to you.
Yeah.
Corey was wondering, he wasn't here for the initial part of the presentation, but he was wondering if on Gipper he's able to make one post and post it to all his different social media accounts.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. We have integrations with Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and you can connect as many of those accounts to Gipper as you would like, and then publish in real time or schedule posts ahead of time, or for a later date, excuse me, across all those different accounts.
Yep.
So it's really up to you. Like we have people who have 20 different team accounts on Twitter. They'll connect all of those. Sometimes they'll just want to post to the football Twitter. Other times they may want to get important information out to all the accounts, so they'll select all of them. So you have that option again for Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Awesome. Yep. Cool. Thanks, Corey, for the question. Now a question for you, Caleb, from Mark. He's wondering which Gipper plan you're currently using.
Yeah. So, and correct me if I'm wrong with what this is called, but I mean, I have the full paid plan that has access to all the athletic stuff. And again, I'll let you guys take it from here. But basically, as I understand it, still, you can have the individual plan, which allows for that one person, that AD, that coach to have access to all the templates, or you can pay a little bit more and basically have unlimited user access, which is on my radar one day. If, so I could have my access, but then all of my head coaches could have access, all of my booster clubs could have access. And now we're really blowing up social media. Those are the two plans, right, guys?
Yep.
Yeah,
Caleb, Caleb's technically on the basic plan right now, which is just the one user that he mentioned. And then the pro that he was alluding to has that unlimited users. So
yeah, and I can just walk through really briefly. The athletic basic, which is what Caleb is on, gives you access to over 250 as of right now, ready-made templates. And that includes motion templates. We didn't discuss that today, but that's like animated content that has an extra level of engagement. Things are moving around. We say plus because we add new content all the time. So new templates are being added to the platform pretty much on a weekly basis. And that's generally based on feedback that we receive from our schools. And then Caleb is also on our school basic as well, which is the templates for all different sorts of needs, like outside of the athletic specific content. So I know there may be a lot of activities directors in here that want to highlight things that are not just athletic focused events. Our school plan is the same Gipper platform, Gipper experience, but with templates for different parts of the school for general communications, events, spotlights, quotes, in a less like athletic focused look and feel, which I know is helpful for some people who are posting different types of content.
awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Corey, for the questions. Before we jump, any other final questions here? Alrighty. Well, we are at 12:08 here, just over a little bit, but really appreciate, Caleb, first of all, for you joining us today, all of the valuable information and the on-the-ground experience that you shared here. Super helpful. Matt, as well, thank you to you for sharing some of the best practices. It's been great to sit and be your host today. Thank you again to KSHSAA as well for helping promote and host and in our partnership, host this webinar today. It was really awesome. As I mentioned at the beginning, we'll also be sharing a recording of today's webinar over email by the end of the day today. So you can look out for that. Again, thank you to our panelists. Thank you everyone for joining us. We'll be in touch soon.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Caleb. Have a good one. Take care.
Bye-bye.